Best way to manipulate and control somebody is through the use of fear, generally something that's totally out of their control. You compromise their living circumstances and literally bring them down to their knees. I live in a seaside town, have for many, many years, and although it has its ups, winter is very limited. It's virtually summer year-round. It also has its downsides. We're right in the path of hurricane season. Although it's been rare that we've gotten direct hits, it has happened. 2004, now at this point in time, people were very confident that no hurricane was ever really going to hit. We went year after year without them. I used to go hang out early in the morning, have some coffee, met with some friends before work every day. We would sit there and shoot the bull for several hours and then dissipate and go off to work. Well, the TV was on one day. We heard that there was a hurricane coming directly at us. We had very little time to prepare, but we pretty much did. Going up to the local Home Depot was unbelievable, the supplies people were buying. Now, society was a little bit different at that time, although we took the precautions. My neighborhood was very tight. I mean, we all went up and down the street, see if anybody needed any help. We all boarded up. People in the coffee shop were panicking. Well, maybe the hurricane will drift. Maybe it'll go somewhere else. Well, that's always a possibility, but you still have to take precautions, which we all did. The worst thing about a hurricane isn't exactly the hurricane itself. It's the anticipation of it arriving. It came to the time where the hurricane was closing in. We could look up and we could see that the weather was starting to get ugly. Everybody went to their homes, bolted their doors, and sat it out. We knew the inevitable was going to happen, and we'd lose our power, which we did. The hurricane, and I cannot recall the name, Jeannie or Francis or one or the other, had hit, and it had stalled. It was one of the slowest moving storms that I'd seen till that point. Well, when the eye passed, it was right overhead. It was in the middle of the night. We all left our houses to survey the damage in the neighborhood. And a lot of the people were really scared what was going on. This was one of the wettest storms I had ever seen. It literally saturated the area. Well, the eye was passing over, so we went back to our homes. And the rest of the storm passed by. Next morning, I went out. Neighborhood was devastated. As a matter of fact, the whole town looked like a war zone for the next year and a half or so. Well, a couple of days had passed by. I figured I'd better check the job sites, make sure everything's all right. So I jumped in my truck and headed towards the highway. Now, we were all without power. Power also means there are no traffic lights. I got to the highway and I was amazed at what I saw. No, it was not out of control, but this is the most cordial I have ever seen people. Nobody was cutting each other off. Everybody was letting certain vehicles out. Then they would stop and other people would drive on. And it was like this for the next few days. Well, we heard about a week later, while we were recouping from this storm, that another storm was barreling in, taking literally the same path. And we're all like, not again. This storm was a little faster moving, but what the first storm didn't destroy, the second storm did. It was obvious we were going to be without power for quite a while, which we were. Now, people were cordial for a short period, and then the bitching started. When am I getting my power back? When am I getting my power back? You're lucky to be alive. Well, people in town were getting angry. They were getting antsy. They wanted their power like they were entitled to it. And eventually, over the next few weeks, little by little, people's power was put back up. And then I'm hearing people squawk, where is my cable? When am I getting my cable back? Unreal. Now, at the time, I didn't have a television set. I got rid of my television set years ago because I thought it was pointless to even have. My cell phone was one of those old brick Motorola's, so I didn't have to worry about a charge because they didn't have a lot of toys like today's phones, so the charges lasted forever. Little by little, we're putting our lives back together, but the things that people found to bitch about were pointless. The only thing that you need are the necessities of life, but people were basically bitching about their luxuries. Now, I've noticed Watchtower utilizes control tactics like this as well. And generally, it's usually when they have their most punch is when certain events happen, whether it be wars, earthquakes, devastating storms, or like our current situation. I'm not going to debate with anybody whether this current virus is real or not, but people are reacting exactly the way the establishment wants them to. And of course, Watchtower is going to capitalize on this. I mean, has anybody seen JW Broadcasting with Stephen Letts? This is the last of the last of the last days, followed by the last day. And of course, Mr. Potato Head III with his, we've been waiting for this. And of course, they're manipulating Jehovah's Witnesses. And you know, the funny thing is, Jehovah's Witnesses are probably one of the few people that are not panicking right now. It's sad to say, but it's true. But right now, they're capitalizing on it. They'll capitalize on anything, but does this make them prophets? Makes them false prophets, because they've been saying the same thing for well over 100 years now. I mean, we've all heard the little boy who cried wolf. It was inevitable that eventually the wolf was going to attack those sheep. But he cried it out so many times that eventually the townspeople just stopped listening to him. And eventually that wolf did come. And Watchtower's been doing the same thing. Whenever world events happen, they jump right on it. And the sorry thing is, I'm really wondering how many former Jehovah's Witnesses and active Jehovah's Witnesses right now in this current situation are running right back to the halls. I mean, I'm sorry, the Kingdom Hall is not going to offer you any more protection than anywhere else. It's kind of like a security blanket. Remember when you were a kid and something would scare you and you'd cover your head up underneath the blankets? And in reality, is that really any protection? Especially since most Jehovah's Witnesses spend most of their life away from the Kingdom Hall. What if something happens and you're not at the hall? It's totally ridiculous to think that this place is going to protect you. But it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses. We're all in the same boat right now. And like I said, I'm not going to argue with anybody whether this virus is real. But if you think back about 10 or so years ago, the H1N1 virus was a whole lot worse than this current one. Yet we didn't have all this hype. So you have to wonder what is behind it. What is going on? Jehovah's Witnesses have been lied to and betrayed by Watchtower since the beginning. Most of us recognized it when we got away, but like I said, right now in this panic situation, and we've all seen what's been going on around the world. Really, toilet paper? But it's like I said, I don't know how many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or inactive Jehovah's Witnesses are running right back to the halls thinking they're going to be saved. And thinking, well, maybe Watchtower was right. But you have to remember one thing. Why did you leave to begin with? Because that situation is still the same. Nothing has changed. Now, outside of Watchtower and the real world, you have to wonder what is going on. And the sorry thing is, I'm not going to go into any details right now because of the situation. But unfortunately, we've all been betrayed. We've all been lied to. For anyone who thinks that life is going to go back to the way it was, you're deluding yourself. Things are changing, but not because Watchtower said so.